Here we are, the National Hockey League training camps are about to start, and we have nothing to talk about, right?
Not a thing.
Nothing.
No, nothing. Okay. You guys have had front row seats to all of this. You've been following it closely, I'm sure. Even if it's on social media. Mike, what do you make of what's gone on in Columbus?
Well, let's not forget here, there was a lot of Mike Babcock stories out of Buffalo back in the day in 2015. Remember, if the Sabres had won the lottery to get Connor McDavid, I remain convinced Mike Babcock was going to be the coach. But he couldn't convince his wife to come when that didn't happen. And then he took his $50 million contract offered by the Pagulas and took it over to the Leafs and got his contract with the Leafs. So that when I went to his press conference with a Buffalo television reporter, it was like I was striking down the Carnival of Toronto, daring to ask King Babcock about why he did the a roundabout on the Sabres. Well, he's just not a good guy. You can find everyone in the league to talk about it. And it was almost, part of me said, what are the Columbus Blue Jackets doing here? Dallying with Mike Babcock and this whole PR tour of he's reformed and he's working on players' mental health. I didn't ever imagine this would go down, but it was almost a matter of time before he was going to screw up. And John, something that Elliot Friedman wrote really struck me the other day. People are allowed to make mistakes and coaches do all the time. Mike Babcock has no rope left. He had to be perfect. In this job with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not only was he not perfect, he wasn't close to perfect. He didn't even make it to the first practice. To me, if I'm the ownership of the Columbus Blue Jackets, I have serious questions right now about Jarmo Kekalainen and John Davidson for even going down this road at all.
Well, it's interesting to talk about the Buffalo situation too, Mike, because, I think that one of the things that Tim Murray promised when he went into the Pagulas was that he could bring Mike Babcock with him. He and Brian had hired Mike in Anaheim. They felt like he was going to be the answer for that team, and then at the last minute he spurned them. I look at it now, and I just wonder why the Jackets went this route in the first place. Why did they decide that Mike Babcock, guys, was going to be the person to lead them to the promised land? I think in 10 years as general manager, I think that Jarmo Kekalainen's team has been to the playoffs 4 times and eliminated, I think, in the first round 3 of the 4 times, except for in the bubble. I think that they brought this upon themselves. Yep. I think now the focus turns to Jarmo Kekalainen and to some extent to the team president, John Davidson. And just one other small point. Guys, I think that Joel Quenneville and Stan Bowman, who are trying to get back in the league, they're probably pretty nervous right now.
I totally agree with that.
Explain that, Bruce.
Well, I think Darren was about to. I think, look, they're 2 guys trying to get back in. They're saying all the right things. They appeared at a general manager's meeting last week. It comes back to, can you change your stripes, Darren? And in the end, it was pretty apparent that Mike Babcock, as much as he paid the lip service, couldn't change his stripes.
When you're looking at a second chance, and after all the glory of getting back into the game, and somebody just got one and blew up before the first practice of training camp, like it's one thing if it happens in year 2 or year 3, but it just massively imploded. And Stan and Joel are sitting there, and what's the league going to do to justify and sell people on letting them back in when it just went off the rails? Like that is a great point by Bruce.
And even if the league does that and the league gives them permission to come back, what team would go down that road and traverse that PR nightmare of saying, we're going to go back to Joel Quenneville now? Because everyone's going to say, well, it's just going to be another Babcock situation.
Well, in defense of Joel Quenneville and his personality are not what Mike Babcock's personality.
But it might
is.
not have anything to do with Joel
No,
or
no,
Stan.
and I understand it.
Yeah,
Just
that-
Mike asked a question off the top of why the Jackets hired Babcock in the first place, and I think that I did the calc. I think it's 71 days. I think it was 71 days. He was the coach of the team, or 77, something like that. And here's my theory on that. I think the success of, and I'm going to say this respectfully, but it's not a very nice word, retreads, the success of retreads in Vegas, in Dallas, in Winnipeg, all these, there were 5 coaches hired the previous summer,
Florida,
with veteran coaches, in Florida, who went on and have really, really successful seasons. So rather than take a risk on a young guy, again, which they had done with Brad Larson, find that unemployed veteran coach that could come work. Now, Joel Quenneville wasn't available, because I do believe they would have hired Joel Quenneville before they would have hired Mike Babcock.
Yeah, but you called Bruce Cassidy and Paul Maurice retreads, and I get that.
No, no, I knew you were going to jump on me for that because you're a wordsmith. But what I'm saying is veteran guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're good guys too. I mean, Maurice could be considered a retread, I suppose. Cassidy not, but it's just made no sense to go hire Mike Babcock. And you know what? They go and hire Pascal Vincent, and they said, well, he was a candidate before. Well, why didn't you just hire him in the first place then?
Because I think they wanted a veteran guy. I think they wanted a veteran guy.
Can I just jump in here on the whole why they hired him? I don't actually blame Columbus for going down that road. They've got a motivated, motivated Mike Babcock, who's gone through the process, stepped aside. He's a high profile guy, which Columbus would like. He's a Stanley Cup guy. He's been in multiple championship series. It checked every box, just like getting a player who's motivated and coming back. I didn't mind it in the sense of trying to give him an opportunity and letting him capitalize on a second chance. I'm just blown away that it happened this fast. I can't believe it.
You know, and it's easy for us to sit here because hindsight is what we do best, and it is 2020. But I look at the situation and I say, okay, you probably shouldn't have gone down that route in the first place. You did. So now you got to get up off the mat. And I think one of the other things maybe thought, Darren, and maybe you tell me, that rink in Columbus is not full. I'm sure they thought this might sell some tickets. Yeah. You're bringing in a guy with cachet. There's no question that Mike Babcock has cachet. And, Olympic gold medal, Stanley Cup champion, one of the most successful coaches in the league. I think that they looked at that and it enticed every ounce of them.
Do people buy tickets to see a coach? Don't they buy
when
tickets?
The coach sells your franchise like he does?
No, Mike.
Hold on. Hey, Mike, you're talking to guys that lived in Ontario, where the focal point of the Toronto Maple Leafs for the last 20 years was up until the Austin Matthews draft, was everybody off the ice and not on. That as well as we do. And I mean, so you know what? I would not have hired Mike Babcock. And I think, the point you made that Elliot wrote about last week is he had to be perfect. Because you also knew that there were going to be naysayers and they were going to pick at anything and on everything. And what he did was he didn't, open the door a crack. He flew open the barn doors and let the horses come in. And that's, to me, it does make you wonder. It does make you wonder if Mike was trying to be in touch with the younger players and didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you guys, is there any thought here that his heart was in the right place? He just went around it totally in the wrong route. Like he was trying to bond with the guys, and Like, is there any crack to buy into that? Because I do think so.
So do I. So do I. I just, but you know what he made was an egregious mistake.
Yeah.
And was given every right of every person to criticize Mike Babcock. And
I don't think it was malicious in the intent,
no, I think it was ignorant.
but the
I think he was
execution
ignorant about
was
how
not.
to do. Yeah, that's right. I think I think listen. He screwed up. He screwed up.
Yeah,
That's really that's what he did.
that's bottom
But I
line.
don't. But I don't think he did it to say. You know, it was funny. I was talking to my wife about this morning. She asked me, "So what's with that guy in Columbus?" And so my answer is that I just don't think he knows how to have that level of communication. And I think in these last 3 years, when he was out of the game, he was told he had, and after all the criticism in Detroit, valid criticism in Toronto, I think he felt he had to try to create a bond with the younger players, and his execution sucked. That's the bottom line. His execution was wrong. Do I think it was malicious? No, I don't think it was malicious. It was wrong, and I don't think that the team had any choice. I think the Players Association did the right thing. I'd still love to know where the commissioner's office was in through this, you know, because nothing in this league happens without the commissioner. We all know that. And you know, that whole behind the scenes weekend that, you know, on Friday with the meeting in New York, and then 48 hours later, Mike is being allowed to, you know, on a piece of paper at least, allowed to resign.